Getting some more slag on these pieces. I got a little alignment mistake here. Need to fix that. came loose again. Truck. Got the interior all welded up and ground smooth. And as they say, grinder and paint make me the welder I ain't, which is certainly my case. I am just an amateur welder. I am not that skilled. Getting ready to prep this seam, just grinding it out a little bit, and we'll weld that up. We'll weld the seams around the bottom and around the end here. But I think everything, is looking pretty good in here. I mean, the welds are nothing to brag about, but they'll certainly hold it together. So I'm going to do some more grinding and welding here. I'll bring you back in a little bit, make some progress. I'm not going to spend the whole video showing you all this since it's totally repetitive. All right, so I'll get back to work. I'll bring you back in a bit. All right, making some progress on this. I switched to a large flap disc on the 7-inch grinder, and that seemed to do a better job of fairing the weld. All right, I think I'm pretty much done with the top joints here. All right, the last thing I need to weld is this seam around the bottom. So I learned something from the comments, as I frequently do. The reason this cuts faster than laying it down flat and cutting down one side and then across the bottom is, and I had postulated that maybe it was the tooth pressure, which I think it does have something to do with that, but I think the more appropriate explanation is that when you're sawing across the flat, the teeth get filled up with swarf or metal filings, and they don't cut after, you know, a 1/16 of, as soon as they create a chip, the gullet between the teeth is full, so it's not cutting anymore. So the suggestion is to have the fewest number of teeth engaged at any given point in time, which makes sense. From now on, that's the way to cut angle. And I assume the same principle applies to other structural shapes as well. All right, so my plan to fasten this to the dump bed, I'm sorry, my plan to fasten this to the lift frame is a couple of angle irons like this. They'll straddle the frame, put a couple holes You really only need a couple, 2 in each side into the frame. So we'll set these. Butchie boy. You eating Brew Brew's gummy? Where's Brew Brew? There comes Brew Brew. So what you doing, Brew Brew, huh? Butchie's eating your gummy. Butchie, Butchie, Butchie. Go get your own gummy. Come on, I'll get you some more. Oh, you got a whole bowl full. You don't like this? And he comes over here to sniff these cans, which is where the food is. Fill up both the bowls. All right. Well, just came out to the shop to run the machine and tilt the bed up. So I'm welding the base, the bottom of the dump bed to this piece of angle, which is bolted then to the lift frame. So just putting it back together here. little flaw there. Okay, so this is just mulch, hardwood bark mulch, well composted. So, I mean, it's probably 100 pounds, but it's our first test here for dumping. Let's see what we got. All right, folks, so that was just a little test to see how well the tractor dump bed would work, and I could tell it was struggling with lifting that load of mulch. So I think I'm going to have to deal with the lack of sufficient hydraulic pressure. Not much I can do with the cylinders. I can't find another location that would be better geometry for them. I mean, I could put 2-inch diameter cylinders in, but that'd cost me $600 or $700. You know, so that would be one possible way to increase the lifting force on the dump bed. I think the easiest thing for me, and this also gives me future potential, and that is to install a regular hydraulic pump. And I've ordered a 2 GPM pump. I have a 6 GPM pump. This is left over from a previous project. I wound up not using it. The 2 GPM pump looks just like this. So it just has a flange, 1/2-inch keyed shaft. We'll couple that with the output on the back of the tractor. The drive shaft comes all the way through the rear transmission. So mount this on a plate behind the tractor, plumb this in the circuit. I think I'm going to try, and I don't know if this will work, though I don't know why it wouldn't, we'll see. Use it as a booster pump. Just have the existing hydrostat hydraulics go into this pump, and then have this pump boost the pressure and provide higher pressure. So that saves me from having to rig a supply and return from one of the rear transmissions. So, I mean, I could do that, and that's what I've done on other applications where I've installed the pumps like this on 3 other tractors, and there's a plate on top of the transmission that you can tap into and put a dip tube in and put a suction tube in and return and vent and stuff. But if I can use the hydrostatic transmission hydraulics to supply fluid to this and use this as a booster, that might, be a simpler solution. So I'm going to try doing that. No guarantee that'll work, but one way or another, if I have to do the supply and return to the tank, for this pump or the pump I ordered, then I'll do that. That will make sure that I have plenty of power, plenty of hydraulic pressure to operate the cylinders, to dump anything we can, I can put into that bed. So, and it'll allow me higher hydraulic fluid pressures for other applications, like a Category 1 hitch on the back of the tractor, which I'm contemplating doing at this point. It'd give me some flexibility down the road. I was hoping that the hydrostatic transmission, would be sufficient, but clearly it's not, given the cylinder geometry that I'm kind of stuck with. So we'll fix it starting next week. Thank you for watching, and if you come back, we'll see you then.